Hello there, this is James, and you're watching Tixee Live. And a very good afternoon to all of you, and a very happy Tuesday. In today's program, I basically want to follow on from this morning's program when we were talking about the euro and, the infamous parity, plus a couple other things which is occurring in the market. We'll have a close look at the market as well before the US session opens. But before we get to that, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be treated as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research and do your own due diligence. And of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. With that out of the way, let's get started. So, this morning, when I was on air, we were talking about, obviously, the market getting incredibly excited about euro hitting parity. And I was asking the question whether or not we'll see parity today. And when I went off air, I had Bloomberg on, I had my charts, I was watching it, and it was terribly exciting, actually. The presenters in Bloomberg were so excited about it actually hitting parity in front of them. They called themselves the Parity Patrol. They were really, really excited. And I must admit, it was exciting. Because it kept moving from like 0, 0, 0, 1 to 2, back to 4, back to 5. So it was going like that. So, but did it hit parity? It sort of gave parity a little kiss. Because basically, when you come down to like 1.00001, then you are technically nearly at parity. It gave parity a little kiss before it's bounced back. And we'll talk about this bounce in a minute. One of the reasons why, and this was just after, this little move happened just after these two sort of medium events came out, which the market paid a lot of attention to. And that was the German zoo. So this event happened just after the EU zoo came out. Okay, and remember I mentioned this in this morning program, saying that it's a medium event, but today the market may pay a bit more attention to it, especially when all this parity talk, and they did. Okay, but it wasn't just because the parity talk. This data was shocking. Now, EU zoo survey was announced. Okay, was announced. There's a spelling error there, my bad. Was announced at negative 5.1.1. 5.1.1. The expectation, like I said this morning, was 32.8. So a lot worse than expected. The German zoo survey was announced at negative 53.8. Expectation of the zoo for Germany was 38.3. So a lot worse than expected. Don't forget, these surveys, they register the percentage of those investors who are optimistic versus those who are pessimistic. So we have a lot more pessimistic investors in Germany and the EU right now. In fact, these results were actually the lowest reading since 2011. And 2011 was the height of the European debt crisis. When we had the pig nations like Portugal, Italy, Greece, Ireland, for example. So when we're going through that bad period back in 2011, 2012. So this is the lowest reading since then. But okay, I'm going to pull the euro up so we can have a look at what happened to it and where it went, and what's the story with it at the moment. Okay, so that's the lowest reading. So like I said, when this event came out, even like I said, it was medium, usually medium, but I did say this morning it might be worth keeping an eye on it. When this event happened, you could see the euro come under a little bit of pressure here, and it just gave parity a little kiss before reversing. Okay, and it was a really interesting thing to watch, because they say the questions being asked at the time, what was keeping it there? Because the amount of attempts it did to try and break parity. I haven't, unfortunately. Very nice to see you, by the way. Like I say, the fact that all this effort, it was really pushing it to try and hit parity. But it was something they're protecting it. And then, like I say, I'll talk about this bounce in a minute because we're trading a little bit higher, but nothing to be terribly excited about. But I'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. What was I going to say? So yeah, what was holding it up? What was protecting it from going under parity or hitting, real parity, not just giving it a little kiss, was barrier options. Barrier options. Now, I am familiar with options because I've traded options myself. Mainly US vanilla options. So I do have an understanding of options. Barrier options, to be fair, I've heard of and I know a bit of, but I'm not an expert on barrier options. But barrier options are a derivative or an asset, which there's two types, but the one in particular, which was known as the the knock-in option, activates or comes into existence, should I say, when a certain price is hit. So clearly, obviously, around this time, around just above parity, there was a number of investors who had barrier options around the $1 level, around or just above the $1 level. So obviously, when it kicked in, these contracts came into existence. So it gave the euro a little bit of protection because the momentum, like I said this morning, the momentum with the dollar against the euro was all against the euro. So these barrier options were protecting them. And barrier options, just so you know, were often used as means to hedge investments as well. So this is what protected the euro for the short time being. But then, as you can see, okay, obviously it's now bounced back up. Okay, it's currently trading at 1.043. But before we could all get excited, okay, or the euro bulls can get excited, practically we're currently trading round the level where the euro opened today. Okay, practically around the area, because remember, look here, the euro closed round about where we are at the moment, and that's where we opened. So we're trading again round where we opened. So again, it's nothing for the euro bulls to get overly excited at the moment, because that leads me on to another question, another thing I want to ask. This current movement, obviously, we could see on the 30 minutes, it looks a lot more dramatic than it does on the daily, because it is. I want to ask the question that currently what we're seeing with the euro dollar is not just the euro dollar right now, and we'll look at the markets across the board with other assets as well. Is this currently a dead cat bounce? Are we set, or are we looking at a reversal? I personally, again, this is no financial advice, I think it's a dead cat bounce. So I think we will challenge parity again, and maybe, like I say, not most, there's a lot of investors now, a lot of speculators are also out there thinking that it will drop below parity at some point as well. So it is a dead cat bounce, in my opinion. And the reason for this, I think that there is a lot of issues facing the Eurozone or Europe in general. ECB being very slow on interest rates, even though we expect them to raise interest rates later today, and not later this month, to maybe 25 basis points. That's still very little, very slow way of raising interest rates compared to, say, certainly the Fed or the Reserve Bank of Australia, or even the UK. Okay, the UK is, it's done 4 rate hikes. So this is a major factor. Poor economic data, like the zoo survey, which we just look at, being so low, like we're actually touching 2011 lows. So that's going to weigh down on the euro as well. And then, of course, obviously, and this is the big one. This is the big one. This is a story I talked about 2 weeks ago, and I think this is just the beginning. And this is, of course, is the EU gas crisis. This is potentially huge. Now, those who joined me yesterday and this morning, they know I spoke about the Nord Stream 1 being closed for maintenance. And the big fear is that the Russians won't turn the taps back on when the maintenance is finished. So this is what's really sort of spooking the markets in such a massive way. EU gas crisis, and there's more of that to come. I am sure of it. Add that in, of course, global recession fears as well. That's up against the euro. Dollar's a safe haven, so that will outshine it that way. High inflation, of course, that's another massive factor. And China apparently looking going back into another lockdown, and they're a massive trading partner with the EU. So that's a bit, and with most of the world. So that's a big thing. But if we have a quick look again, like I say, on interest rates, US 175, CAD 150, Aussie 135, Euro 0.0. Maybe 0.25 soon, but 0.25 no. UK 1.25, Swiss negative 0.25, and Bank of Japan. We all know that. I've covered that story so many times that obviously they're not moving. So yeah, this is where we have it. So I do see this as a bit of a dead cat bounce. Let's see how the US session looks at this, whether they will push it down to parity again, or whether or not we'll wait for another attempt tomorrow with the US CPI, which I believe will be massive. On the plus side, well, sort of plus side, but it's a mixed bag, unfortunately. It's obviously this year, it probably will be cheaper for US tourists to visit Europe, because obviously they have a slightly stronger dollar. However, we have a massive airport crisis across Europe and the globe. So that's, one positive, one negative. Unfortunately, in fact, I don't know, there is an interesting story. Heathrow has told all the airlines visiting it to cancel tickets because it's got a cap of only being able to handle 100,000 people a day. So, okay, that's another big story. So yes, that's an interesting story. Okay, moving on to something else. Yeah, keeping with the global energy. Obviously, I'll be talking about the gas crisis, but we are currently living through a global energy crisis as we speak. In fact, the IEA executive director, which is the International Energy Agency, Mr. Faith Byro, he said today, the world has never witnessed such a major currency crisis in terms of its depth and complexity. We might not have seen the worst of it yet. So even more doom and gloom on this. We're saying we're not even seeing the worst of this crisis, which is going to obviously have an impact on the world. What else? Just quickly, and then we'll have a look at some of the other stuff in the market in a minute. Oil ignores the OPEC report. The OPEC report that come out today, and basically it's not changed its projection for 2022. But it's increased its projection for 2023 and 2024, which means they expect an increase in demand, but they've also said that supply will not match it. So then we got the supply issues again. What's oil done? Let's have a look at it. Well, basically, it's ignored it, totally ignored this report. And I think it's instead being more way down to the fears of obviously slowdown and the China lockdown. I think that's really playing on oil. And as you can see at the moment, it is currently trading at $97.25. This is on a daily chart. So again, currently under pressure. Ignored the OPEC report, which was quite sobering report to read. And we'll maybe talk a bit more about that in later episodes, but yeah, under pressure, $97.25. If we have a quick look at Brent also under pressure, currently trading just above the $100 level, currently trading $101.21. So oil there, ignoring the OPEC. So really, they are listening to the China concerns, lockdown concerns, and recession concerns is weighing on oil. So that's something else. Let's have a quick look at the market in general and see some other stories. Obviously, the cable, okay, this is on a daily. It is bordering around a 2-year low, currently trading at 1.1880. It wasn't just a euro who had a tiny bounce, or a bit of a bounce against the dollar after the euro touched close to parity. It did have a little bit of bounce, but I say, if you look at it on the daily, you can see, okay, it's not that dramatic. It just looks dramatic because we've been watching it under pressure a lot for the last couple of sessions. If we have a quick look at the dollar yen, okay, this is practically a little bit more of maybe profit taking, maybe the dollar getting a little bit of selling pressure. Not dramatic though. It's still trading at 136.57. It was trading around 137.55 at the beginning of the session. but it's come down a little bit. So it's just a little bit of a sell-off. I'm not seeing the change in sentiment or change in mood against the dollar at the moment in any way. Gold, funny story. And if you're watching, my friend, thank you. One of my regular sort of viewers, fantastic, asks amazing questions. He left a comment about in YouTube saying, when I said yesterday, when I said this morning, I said in other news, gold. I went because he knows I'm going to go and talk about gold. Everybody knows I'm a gold bugs, but I thought that was really funny. I love the fact he made that point. I'm going to be talking about gold. So gold is still on a daily under pressure, currently trading $1,731.90. It's tinkering around that level I've been watching. Remember the level I mentioned this morning and I put into place a little while ago, 1,727. So keeping an eye on that. If we looked at the 30-minute chart again, we can see there was a little bit of a bounce before, obviously. So again, like the cable, like the euro, like the yen, bit of a teeny weeny fight back against the dollar, but not massively. So you can see on that. Bitcoin. Let's have a quick look at Bitcoin because I remember I did a story yesterday about Bitcoin. We did that Bloomberg survey, and they said that about 60% of those who they did a survey on this. They expect Bitcoin to close towards 10,000 sooner than it going back to 30,000 again. So there is a little bit of obviously negativity or bearish nature towards Bitcoin. As you can see, it's just a little bit under that level we've been watching for a while. Remember, we've been watching at 20,335. Currently, we're facing bit risk off appetite. Currently trading at $19,961. So a little bit of that. Something else I think would be worth having a look on. Don't forget, we did the story yesterday about Twitter and the opposing court case against Musk for backing out of Twitter. They're going to try and sue him for $1 billion or get $1 billion off him. Sorry, my throat's really dry. I think it's half the aircon, half me talking, half me being too excited. Anyway, it's currently Twitter closed very negative yesterday. It actually opened with a gap. It closed the previous session at $37.30. It actually opened just above the $33. So I'm currently under pressure. We're seeing a little teeny weeny bit of a buy-in at the moment, which is normal when it's had quite a dramatic sell-off. So it'll be interesting to see how Twitter develops. If you look at on a long term, you can see that tech stocks in general have been under pressure, but obviously the Musk story is really, really hit it. If you remember, back at the time when Musk was going to buy it, it was trading around $54.15. So you can see there's been very much a change in fortune for Twitter. So we're seeing how this session turns out. If you have a quick look at the S&P 500, okay, this is again on a daily. You can see that last week, it closed with 4 days in a row with gains, which is unheard of in recent times. But like I say, yesterday it closed slightly negative. I thought we're seeing a little bit of a movement on it slightly higher. It's still, there we go. It's a nice little movement now. Now currently trading at 3,870 points. We do still have that slight risk appetite. So it'll be interesting to see where it is. And if we look at on a daily again, we can see, we've got a little bit of way to get to where it opened yesterday. Okie doke. So that's pretty much the market cap on that. Other major events coming up this week, including one in particular I want to talk about, and I'll talk about it in more detail in a minute. Obviously, we've got Bank of England Governor Bailey speaking later today, UK GDP happening tomorrow, Germany CPI, which is going to be big, US CPI, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, Canadian interest rates, US retail sales, and US Michigan consumer sentiment. But the big one is happening tomorrow, and that is US CPI. Okay, and yes, I'll be doing a watch along on this event at 12:20 p.m. UTC. Potentially, this could be massive. Expectation is for it to come in at 8.8%. That's a 4-decade high. Okay, so this potentially could be a huge event. I think the market is waiting for this. You never know. You never know. This could be the event, like I mentioned this morning. This could be the key event that finally sends euro properly to parity and maybe below it. So this is a key event. This is a major event. So let's look forward to that. Remember, I'll be on 12:20 p.m. UTC. So please come and join me. As the market stands, European market, that is. FTSE currently trading at negative 0.17%. DAX negative euro 0.61%. And Euro Stoxx 50 currently trading at negative 44%. So yeah, what a day. Honestly, I will tell you now that Euro this morning, around it was 9 p.m. UTC when the German zoo and the EU zoo came out. That was really exciting. I couldn't tear myself away from my screen. It was really exciting whether or not we could actually see euro hit parity. So that was pretty exciting. Anyway, don't forget, you can ask me questions anytime you wish, whenever you wish. Market related, talk about what's happening in the market. Ask me previous trading stories if you like, or simply say hello if you like. Entirely up to you. I mean, this is tixee Live, and live means live. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, like I say, feel free to ask me questions in the rent to the market. If I know the answer, I will certainly tell it to you. If I don't, I'll find out and I'll share it to you next time I go on. I'll go live. Don't forget either. If you think of a question later, a question suddenly pops into your head, leave it on the comments below. Okay, either on YouTube and Facebook. I will see them, like I have done many times, and I will reply to that question, answer that question next time I'm live on air. So I will always answer your questions. And like I say, any news about Google? Of course, no. To be honest, they have their earnings coming out very, very, very soon. And that's a great question again. Great question. Let's have a look at Google as well. We have the earnings season. It starts this week, and Google is going to be one of the companies later down the line who is going to obviously release their earnings. Okay. So this is potentially massive. Because what earnings do, earnings tend to show the profit a corporation has made from the previous quarter. And last quarter was so damaging for so many companies. It put the market under so much pressure. And don't forget, so we had that, like the S&P is down from around about 20% since January. So a lot of pressure. So though I know nothing about Google and their earnings as of yet, I know that's coming on the horizon soon. But it's a great question. And I'll tell you what, tomorrow morning, obviously I'm going to be focusing on, the US CPI, but I'll do the list of earning when the earning reports come out. In particular, I will make sure I've got when Google's earnings is due. And we'll talk a little bit more detail of that. I'll share that with you because I want to talk a little bit about the earning season, because that's about to begin. And like I say, that's a major event, because the last couple of earnings reports, a number of companies scared the market completely, and there's more fear that we're going to see, less targets being met. But yeah, I will certainly bring that up, and I would definitely bring up and tell you when Google's earnings is due. I promise you that, because I say this potentially could be a good event. But a great question, a really good question. Fantastic, as always. Brilliant question. Thank you. Is there any other questions at all? Anything else anybody like to ask me? Okay, don't forget, jot the questions down in the comments below if you think of any of them later. So please feel free to do that. But anyway, if there's no further questions, thank you so much for everybody's time, and thank you those who've joined me, and thank you for the young lady who asked me again a second great question. She asked me a brilliant question this morning, another question to follow that. So thank you for that. Please keep doing that, and make sure you tune in either tomorrow or sometime tomorrow, because I will talk. I'll find out to you and announce the date. I'm trying to remember what date it is. I think it's near the end. I might be getting confused with Meta or in Facebook, but I think it's the end of this month. But I will confirm the earning data when it's due, so we can be prepared for when that comes out. But yeah. Oh, well. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you so much, sir, for your question. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It's the thumbnail. Sorry, my apologies. But no, brilliant, mate. Thank you so much for asking me these questions. These questions are excellent. I really, really appreciate it. I really do. So no, and tune in tomorrow, and I will make sure I'll give you the data when the Google earnings is due. Anyway, apart from that little mistake I just made, and my apologies, please keep the questions coming. Please keep the interaction coming. And remember, again, I'll be back online again tomorrow, 3 times tomorrow. I'll be again online at 8 a.m. UTC, 12:20 p.m. UTC to do the watch along with the US CPI. And again, at probably going to be 1:30 p.m. Give me time to write the material. UTC to do the US session in time for us to have a look at the States and look at the US, how it is opened up as well. So please come along and join me for that. Again, like I always say, if you're watching me on Facebook and you've enjoyed this little episode, by all means, give us a follow. If you're watching me on YouTube and again, you've enjoyed this little episode, subscribe if you like. Hit a notification on YouTube so you know next time I'm going live. If you enjoyed this episode and you found it interesting and insightful, and you've put up with me for being over the top and overexcited, I can't help it. I just love the markets. Give me one of those. I see I've got quite a few likes already today, and that's great. Thank you. I really appreciate it. But give me one of those, and I like to see videos are being liked. Anyway, on that note, please remember these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research and do your own due diligence, and of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. Till next time, every single one of you, trade safe.